Okay, take two. I'm kind of new to this. I accidentally posted my home address. Thank God I didn't try this live. Yeah. This guy made a cool video about renting versus owning, and I agree with him completely. Even though I'm an owner, he's a renter. Uh, it's a lifestyle choice. Housing is not an investment. It seems like one, and here's why. Because for the last 40 years or so, interest rates have done nothing but go down. The cost of borrowing money has gone down. Savers have gotten it up the butt. It's not fair. There needs to be a reckoning. Rates should obviously be somewhere around here or something with inflation where it is. Like think about that. You give the federal government money in 1990, you get 8%. That's reasonable for retirement savings and stuff, right? In the middle of the Rona, you get 0.65. Not even a percent. Not even a percent. So, I mean, this is ridiculous, right? Even then, inflation was 3 or 4%. It didn't really kick in yet. The free money was sitting around. Yeah, there's a whole debate about that, and I'm definitely on one side of it versus the other. The money injection here did not cause inflation until about almost into the Biden administration. I mean, that's what. I'm sorry, I know you Trumpers don't want to blame Biden for everything, but it was Trump's money that did this. The inflation that you're not anymore. It's Biden's fault now for the gas prices, but it was Trump's money, dude. You gotta fucking face that. But anyway, I made a huge mistake based on common sense that I thought was smart. Like right around here, this is the 10-year Treasury at 5%. I was a realtor that was like trying to get me to buy a house, and it was not a bad house. I was gonna try to look it up, but then I looked up my own address, so I had to like stop the video. But it was like in Irwin Lake, California, if you know where that is. It's like a small, very small town, but part of a bigger town. And it was $80,000, and the payment was about $800, and it was a zero down loan. And I was like, this sounds great because I was paying about $750 for rent, so why not? It's a nice little house. It's like a cabin, and so I was about to I was doing all the paperwork, and then I looked down at the paper, and it said net worth, and then it said negative $3,000. I'm like, what? I have money in the bank. And it's like, well, no, wait, I have a car loan. Oh shit, I have a car loan. So I have that debt, and I'm gonna add more debt. What am I thinking? So I tore up the loan papers. It was just totally dumb because I could have used debt as a blessing. And I'm not saying to do it now by any means. I'm just trying to say how this could have worked out. That house was worth 3 times as more by like 5 years later, something like that, 3 or 4 years later. So I could have easily walked away with like 150 grand and moved up to Portland or something. That would have been pretty. I mean, come on, like that would have been pretty cool. I could probably do something like that right now, but it's risky because like it's hard to move. There's a bunch of reasons why it's complicated. Like in other words, where I live and what I have is like a lifestyle choice. I don't view a house as an investment. It's just a place to live. I'm happy I did it because I have super low payment that like it's like sub $1,000. So like it's cheap. It's not hard to like pay the bills. So, I'm not sitting here paying $1,500, $2,500 a month to like live in some freaking condo or some bullshit somewhere in like LA or something. So yeah, it's nice. It's okay, it's about half as ghetto. But anyway, we're at this point now where rates just can't do this anymore. It's like, I mean, remember this talk about negative interest rates? You don't hear that anymore, do you? Is that like a Mero, like a conspiracy theory or something? It just seems like negative rates are just totally off the table. And everybody's worried about inflation. Personally, I'm worried about deflation. If I'm worried about anything, I'm not really worried because I'm prepared for it. But deflation is probably what's coming next, because inflation creates too high prices. High prices cause people to spend less. You have a recession, deflation. So that's really all the Fed can do. All the Fed can fucking do to fix this inflation problem is to kill the economy. That's all they have. They just have a fucking sword or a gun, and it's a pig, and that's all they can do is kill it, slaughter it. That's it. Because it's funny because they have all these sophisticated tools behind the scenes. All these people that say end the Fed, end the Fed. They don't really know what would happen if we ended the Fed. Like we kind of depend on the Fed. We should reform it, in my opinion. Like they don't really know how like hard it is to like move all this money around and make sure that like checks clear and all this shit. Like if you've ever dealt with that, you know what I'm talking about. Very few people have, so they don't really. They just like scream in the Fed and like they have all these. That's okay. I get their sentiment because I agree the Federal Reserve at least needs to be audited. At least at the very least, I would reform it. I would. So like, people like me, I guess, are dangerous, right? Because we're not so stupid. Like we don't like want to like. We just want to change it for the better, right? Get rid of the scam. But the institution itself could work. Actually, it's. I mean, you've never had more since the Fed was created. As much as I hate the wars, and as much as I hate the national debt, you have never had such a period of exploding productivity on the planet that I know of in history. I mean, just exploding productivity and actually capitalism. The biggest, like the Fed's the biggest, the banking system. I don't know. Since it's been there, you've had an explosion of things getting better that we all take for granted in terms of like washing machines, just stuff like that. It's all this stuff, just everything around you. I'm not saying it's all good, but it's the Fed isn't necessarily bad. It's just like we should know a little more. I'm with the Ron Paul thing of auditing them and just knowing what we should. We should have a right to know what they do. I think at least more of a right. I don't know about. They might have some reason for some secrecy that I don't understand, but and that's fair. Um, you know, I don't know. It's kind of a. I don't want to get into that whole debate, but speaking of the Fed, what they've been doing to keep okay, here's the housing collapse of 2008. Like for once, I was trying to buy a house, and I was trying, but the prices were way too high, and I was trying to buy one in like Vancouver, Washington. I was trying to buy a duplex. It was really nice, but it was like 190,000, and I was like, it was just a little too much for me, and like it all collapsed anyway. So, but anyway, I didn't get it. But it would have been cool though, because I could have had I could rent out the other side. It could be like a guest house if I could afford to not rent it. It could be just cool. I thought anyway, but so like Airbnb and shit. But that would have been dope. I would have been raking it in. But here we have what the Fed's doing. This is I've shown this chart before. This is them printing money, basically printing money. They're saying, "Come to us, we'll buy whatever you got," and then they buy shit like bonds, mortgages, your mortgage, they buy your debt. They buy it, so they own it. And that's what they did to save the economy during the Obama years. And as much as there were critics to this, it was absolute genius. I mean, they kept society from collapsing. It should have been really bad. Now, beneath the surface, there are a lot of things collapsing. Okay, but at this level, I mean, with what I don't know, it just seemed like they've really kept things from going where they really like. It should have been like the Depression in the 30s, and it didn't quite seem like that. It was bad, but people were still doing stuff. And then so there was a time though where you had like a friend or something that really couldn't find a job and was really trying, not just being a loser or whatever. But anyway, then they just kept going, right? There's the stock market going up. There's real estate going up. Real estate actually was cratering. Right around here is when I bought, and it was a really good time to buy. Really good time. It was my second chance, So then, really good. But then they keep printing money, and then here's you got this thing where Trump's in there, the market's going up, and the Fed goes like, okay, we can start tapering, and they started playing these games, and the economy started getting very shaky right around here. I remember having these arguments with Republicans about because it's the best economy, and why? Because Trump. It's like, they're just it wasn't. It was basically the Obama economy, and the Fed just tried to pull it back just a little bitty bit, and didn't work. The markets were getting crazy. They were having some problems. And then they pull this shit, which I'm not even going to talk about. If you know, yeah, this, geez Louise, come on, for what? But if you notice, it looks like the same exact pattern, doesn't it? And here we are, where they're trying to sort of rein in their assets and kind of deflate. This is like they're trying to deflate a little bit, and it's a very dangerous game because you could end up with a full-scale depression. It's weird because it's like I'm bipolar with this shit. Since I own a house, technically nobody owns, by the way. Nobody freaking owns. We're all renters from the government. But there's just different classes of renters that we all are. Let's just be honest. If there's a state that ever gets rid of the the property tax. Like, everything's Texas is so free. They have like the highest property taxes. Like, that to me is like an insult. That's like the worst tax you could possibly have. So anyway, you get here and they're trying to pull back a little bit, and well, I think we're in a recession, and that's so weird how they're trying to pretend it's not a recession. It's like 2 quarters of negative growth is a recession. That's what it is. Like, I've never seen a period in time in my life, or as much as I've studied economics, and I have quite a bit, which isn't a science, by the way. It's all a bunch of bullshit, most of it. Most of economics is bullshit, but there's still a lot to study there. But I'm really into it. But anyway, I like to spot patterns because that's like my brain does. Well, everybody's brain does, but yeah, look, that's a pattern right there, dude. They're going, oh, we got to print a bunch of money. Okay, stop. Okay, just keep going, even keel. Like, that's the thing. Like, they could go. They can't. The problem now is they can't really print more money because they have to kind of pull money out because the inflation's too high. Now, I think it's leveling off. Personally, I think inflation's probably more like 5% now, maybe even starting to go down. I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. Inflation is basically impossible to measure because it's the price of absolutely everything. That's why I like to just look at this, because this is inflation right here. You just see what they're doing. They just went, that all happened during Trump, boys and girls. I know you guys love your Trump and want to hate Biden, and I don't like Biden, but I don't like Brandon by any stretch of the imagination. But that all happened, and I know he doesn't have control of this, but he loved it. He wanted negative rates, bros. He wanted negative rates. He wanted you to put your money in the bank and get a negative return. Because of course he does, because he's a real estate guy and he just debt. Debt is his. He understands how to use debt. It can be very productive. I agree. When it's to buy a house or something lasting, or it can be very productive. But anyway, so as far as renting versus owning, to go talk forever about this, I just thought I'd tell that story about, well, there's times to buy and times not to buy. There's lifestyle choices, but I believe that since we're probably at the turning of a rate super cycle, I mean, this is very significant. You know, we're back to, I mean, I don't know, this is a very significant interest rate. The economy seems to be handling it without busting at the seams, but I don't see how, like, okay, hold on. Mortgage calculator. Hold on here. Don't fucking try to sell me a mortgage. Just give me a fucking mortgage calculator. There we go. There we go. This is what you want when you're doing this shit. So let's just say 300, like the price of a house where I live, a modest house like mine. I mean, mine's probably not worth this, but it's not. Like, I don't have the stuff that it thinks that they think I have on the internet. But let's just say, is it going to be one of these things where hold on. Okay. What's the payment? That's roughly property tax. That's kind of steep. I mean, that's a lot for a house like this. Like, I'm paying, and that's with the 80,000 down. Like, who has 80,000 down? That's not going to happen. It's going to be more like 5% down. That's what I did. Oh, get the fuck out of here. It's my fault. Yeah, it's $2,000. That's like well over twice of what I'm paying just to live here. Who can? I mean, I guess people can pay that, but it's not like the minimum wage here is like 13, 14 bucks an hour. So I think it is. Yeah, that's the last checked, or maybe it's 11 or 12. It may not. It's all tiered depending on what city you live in. Like in Portland, it's 15 already. Out in the rural areas, it's like 10 or 11 bucks. It's kind of smart because they're gonna have a minimum wage. They tailor it to the rural versus urban. That's one thing where they got right. I think at the rural urban thing, it is different. It's cheaper, and why can't it just be lower? I mean, there's the tip thing and all that, but I don't know. It's probably too low everywhere, but it does make sense that you would have a higher minimum wage in the city versus a place where it's just significantly cheaper. But yeah, that's a lot. This mortgage rate is going to kill the. I mean, it has to kill the housing market at some point. They're just trying to like kill the economy softly. Killing me soft. At the Fugees, or who did that song? I don't know. they're just trying to do that. I mean, like they want to kill it, but not too hard, not put everybody out of work, but they need to create a recession. That's the only tool they have. And then so for people who aren't, I don't know, I could sell and rent, but it's scary because like what if like I could end up never owning a house again or even homeless. You just like that's why people get trapped. Kind of they don't. It depends though. It all depends on what's going on in your life, but yeah, housing is a lifestyle choice. Buying versus renting. Renting can be just fine. You just don't want to pay too much for rent, and it is better to own your house, in my opinion. There is a lot of magic to it. However, that magic, things change. Back in the day, people rented and owned, and it wasn't nobody. Housing wasn't this big investment back then. It has been here. It's done me very well to get a mortgage, but back here, um, housing was just like you rented or whatever. I wasn't alive then, but I know what people talk. They didn't talk like this. I know this because I know people that in construction. But anyway, I've gone on too long. Those gummies are really good. Thank you. Onlymids.co. Use code MM99 for a 10% discount and free shipping. Later.